starts reading Umineko no Naku Koro ni. So let's get to it. Is this the second page? Okay. Okay. The uncomfortable atmosphere continued even after those two left. It was thick with the idea that simply thinking about the culprit's identity would be the same as deciding whom to suspect. Oh, give me a moment. Let me just move it. It began to feel like a discussion of the case itself was taboo. So no one mentioned the case, at least out loud. However, those thoughts were what filled our minds. All that we couldn't say out loud made our heads feel like they were going to explode. So at least on the outside, the parlor had once again regained its calm mood. Everything was left unsettled. It feels like the rain's gone a little lighter.
Still pouring down.
Even if it did stop, there's no boat on this island, but it'd be nice if the boat came quickly tomorrow. I've had enough of this western mansion vacation. Mom, when will the boat come tomorrow? Normally the boat to take them back would arrive at 3 today. They probably sent us a phone call to say that they would come after the typhoon passed, but unfortunately the phones aren't working. But they aren't children over there. They were told to both drop off and collect our guests, so they'll most likely arrive first thing tomorrow morning. Probably about 9, I believe. It was completely black outside. When I looked at the clock, I realized it was just past 7. I was starting to get hungry. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was cooking enthusiastically. She laid out a variety of dishes, and while they didn't match the level of Goto's artful cooking, they were still quite gorgeous. It was an act of kindness from Kumasawa, who was trying to enliven everyone's low spirits with some food. Kumasawa wasn't nearly as talented as a professional cook like Goto, but she was far from unskilled. On the contrary, since she had brought up in a fishing village, the simple food she created sometimes was highly praised. Kannon arranged the food that Kumasawa had finished creating on the plates under her direction. Kannon also helped in the kitchen sometimes, but since he was rarely placed in that role, he was slightly awkward even though he tried his best. Self-conscious about the fact he couldn't cleverly arrange the food, Kannon's expression darkened slightly, but Kumasawa smiled as though everything was fine. It's arranged beautifully. Kannon, aren't you skilled? If it had been Shannon, it would look even more beautiful. Kannon stopped arranging the food for a bit and hung his head. Shannon was always the one who assisted Kumasawa in her cooking. Tonight, Kannon was doing it instead. As he remembered Shannon's face and her brutal end, he grew mace. Forget that for now. Genji spoke kindly to Kannon as he advanced the pawn. Nancho had escaped the parlor once when mood had gone sour, and Genji had become his opponent in the game of chess upon Nancho's request. I messed up, I'm sorry. Let's try that again. Forget that for now. Genji spoke kindly to Kannon as he advanced a pawn. Nancho had escaped from the parlor once the mood had grown sour. Genji had become his opponent in the game of chess upon Nancho's request. Yes, I will forget it for now. Indeed, that is probably for the best. Genji purposely refrained from facing Kannon as he spoke. He did so because he understood it might make things tougher on Kannon if he noticed that someone was looking at his eyes. Nanjo also understood and held back any thoughtless words. I wonder where Kinzo has gone. I hope that he is safe, but... I do not know. However, I believe everything has proceeded as the master has hoped for and arranged for. To distrust that would exceed my role as furniture in service to the master. Aren't you scared, Genji? I'm afraid that something bad will occur again tonight. I have nothing to be afraid of. I serve the Ushiromiya family, and that is all. Nanjo sighed through his nose and made a carefully considered move. Nanjo was very slightly dubious. Could Genji possibly think he left out of this? He couldn't even imagine what was happening inside this mansion, but he definitely couldn't deny the possibility that Kinzo had devised something. Yeah, what's up? But yeah, I need to fix the background still. I probably won't get to it until tomorrow, probably, because I don't know how to mod the game myself. So anyway, if you liken this island to chess, Kinzo had opened the game, and as a result, 6 pieces had been defeated. Could it be that Genji was calm because he believed he alone was on the outside of the chessboard and therefore safe? Nanjo thought about it. Isn't everyone just a piece on this chessboard lined up equally without any exceptions? It wasn't even Genji who had gained more of Kinzo's trust than anyone. No, who was confident of his position as Kinzo's only close friend. Just another one of the pieces laid out on the chessboard. Genji, I'm truly frightened about tonight. I hope with all my heart that we'll be safe tomorrow when tomorrow morning comes. Oops, I messed up. The guest room Eva and Hideyoshi moved into had originally been built to house guests before the guest house construction. So until a few years ago, they'd stay in these rooms every family conference and were very familiar with them. This room was just like a room at a hotel with a bedroom and a bathroom. So even though they were shut in, it was far more comfortable than the parlor. Guess it's true you can relax more when you're alone with your family. Maybe it'd be better if everyone else also shut themselves in guest rooms and locked the doors. Natsuki said that no one can leave the parlor throwing her weight around. I'm sure no one will be able to talk back. She's always been treated so coldly, so now that Nissan's dead, she's getting excited about finally having so much power. Seriously, how shameless can she be? Come now, don't say that. Natsuki's doing pretty well. No need to jump around like that. And about that receipt earlier, when you went too far. Come on, if I hadn't said it there wouldn't be another good time to say it. Ava, sulking cutely and looked at the television, sat alongside Hideyoshi, who was lying on the bed. Still, we haven't been alone like this for quite some time. You're right, come to think of it, both you and I have gotten pretty old. Since George was born, everything's gone by in a blink of an eye. It really has. I wonder if we were too hasty in having a child. Ava's eyes looked like they were staring off into the distance. Yes, she had thought of it as a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Her older brother Kraus had been unable to father a child for quite some time. 6 years passed after his marriage to Natsuki without any signs of pregnancy, which didn't please Kinzo at all. Ava herself had thought that, since her name would be moved outside the Ushiromiya register when she got married anyway, it didn't matter whether a successor to the headship was born or not. And then one day, she had a heavenly revelation, or maybe it was the whisperings of a devil that she had listened to in her greed. If she could give birth to a successor first, wouldn't she be able to remain in the Ushiromiya register? If things went well, might she have had a chance to inherit the Ushiromiya family herself? When she proposed this to Hideyoshi, he approved of it instantly. This wasn't because Hideyoshi also had greedy thoughts. For Hideyoshi, who had no close relatives, it was a chance for him to feel once more the long-forgotten thing called family. So when they got married, he hadn't fussed over which name they were to keep, and had quickly agreed to have his name entered in the Ushiromiya family register. Hideyoshi, best dad. I don't know, he's one of my favorites. It hadn't been easy to persuade Kinzo, but as his daughter Ava knew Kinzo's personality well, so by choosing the time when Kinzo was most dissatisfied with Natsuki, she was magnificently able to make him accept Hideyoshi as an adopted son-in-law. Looking at Hideyoshi, who has achieved success after starting from nothing, Kinzo might have seen a little bit of himself. He quickly grew to like Hideyoshi and approved his transfer into the Ushiromiya register. Yeah, Hideyoshi's so likable, even Kinzo likes him to an extent. George would eventually become the successor to the Ushiromiya family. They had raised him strictly with that purpose in mind. He had been worth their while and had grown to a fabulous young man who wouldn't disappoint no matter where he went. That was why he had not been permitted to fall in love with a certain like Shannon. So when she had learned that Shannon was dead and the engagement was now invalid, though a part of her had still been shocked by the gruesome crime, part of her had also been relieved that her dear George wouldn't be stolen by some servant girl. Sheesh. I've hated Kraus since long ago. He was so full of himself, always swaggering around. So proud that he would one day become the head. So I wanted to get back at him. Was that just a childish emotion? But in the end, that emotion guided my entire life. If that had been all, then it would have been fine. But because of that emotion, I got you and George involved. I used you.
Ava, don't blame yourself for that. Hideyoshi got up and held Ava's shoulder. She could feel a warm understanding from him. Well, when I reached the halfway point of my life long ago, but you know, I have absolutely no regrets about how I lived my life. Not one. I think that since I've been with you, Ava, I've been able to relish an enjoyable life that other men never will. After I lost my relatives in the war, you remind me what the warmth of family is. So I'm grateful to the Ushiramiya family and think of it as my only one. In this life I've led with you, not a single thing's been wasted. It's really been a fun life up till today.
Thank you, darling.
Ava hung her head, burying her face in Hideyoshi's chest. Probably no one in the parlor could even imagine this side of Ava existed. I'm the one who should be thanking you. Up until today, there hasn't been a single day I've regretted being with you.
Me too. I'm so glad to have you by my side.
George is already a fine adult. Even if I don't look out for him, he's a man who could do his job all on his own.
I wonder, around New Year's, do you want to go spend some time in the Maldives, just us? No one else? No way. Aren't you always saying that you're so busy responding to New Year's cards that you don't even sleep?
None of that this New Year's. I won't read New Year's cards. I'll just stay quiet and check to see if I won New Year's lottery. It sure be nice if we won a color TV this year.
No way. I don't want to waste time checking the lottery while in the Maldives.
Then none of that either. How does it sound? Just the two of us taking it easy when we're just newlyweds just before George was born.
Yes. In that case, fun.
I hear the Maldives are wonderful. An island with nothing on it, surrounded by beautiful coral and reefs and cottages lining up all over the water.
Like when we were newlyweds, you say. Starting when?
As soon as I finished up some business. I won't know till I ask the travel agency, but probably before New Year's Eve.
No way. Right now. I want to go right now.
Ava nagged at his lips in a peevish yet flirtatious manner.
Oof. Yes. The only sounds that filled the room were the distant voice of the announcer on the news, which Hideyoshi had left on, and the obnoxious pounding of the rain against the window. I love this moment between them, though. It's so endearing.
I know, right?
Oof. And on top of that, they're doing that cliche, you know, the teenagers thing, except they're not teenagers and they're doing it. Yeah. Then there was a knock on the door and Genji entered. Madame, dinner has been prepared. Will you go eat in there again? Yes. Have it brought here. Is Dr. Nanjo still in the kitchen? Yes. He has said he wishes to carefully deliberate over his next move. Do not worry, he's with the other servants. Yes, yes. I love it when I see Ava not being a meanie, but I mean, I love her either way. Even her bad sides. Except when she's terrible to somebody in the future. Like that's bad. So anyway. Like with Nazi, for example, but yeah. Kraus. Genji's good enough at chess to be grandfather's opponent. I hear he's even better than Dr. Nanjo, right? Yep.
That's right. Long ago he played against me, but he must have let me win. Maria, sounds like it'll be time to eat soon. But look at you, you've been watching TV all day long and you still haven't gotten bored.
I'm always watching TV, so I'm fine.
I used to be a TV kid too. Now I'm on the computer all the time. Maria sure is a TV kid. Oh wait, no, I'm on my phone all the time too. Food's coming, so we have to clean up the table.
Earlier, we had torn out several pages of Maria's notebook. There was now a mess where everyone had been drawing together. Jessica's been cleaning up that pretty quickly. Still, everyone here can really draw. I never would have guessed.
Genji asked Ava and Hideyoshi whether they'd at least like to have dinner with us, although they would probably turn us down. Certainly. First father and now Ava. It's quite hard to gather everyone to the Ushiromiya dinner table.
Natsuki felt her headache starting to throb again and lightly held her temples. I love Natsuki. She's like so forgiving. It's like, yes, let's have them together too. The distance from the kitchen to the parlor wasn't that great, so Genji had gone and come back by himself, but the guest room was a little farther away. Natsuki had warned him to avoid being alone whenever possible, and just now, Nanjo had also admonished him, saying it would be better if he had held a little more concern for his safety. Kanon accompanied Genji, and the two of them went to visit Ava and Hideyoshi in their guest room. Genji knocked on the door.
Ava, Hideyoshi, dinner has been prepared.
He waited a short while for them to come out, but there was no response.
Genji, look at this.
Kanon pointed under the door. A Western envelope had been inserted in under it. Normally, when something was inserted this way, it'd be interpreted as a message from someone outside to someone in the room. So, when this might be a private note meant for Ava and Hideyoshi, it was not something that Kanon and Genji were supposed to take interest in. But this Western envelope was one of Kinzo's, the same kind as the one Maria had taken out last night and surprised everyone with.
There can be no mistake. It is one of the Master's envelopes. Or could it be?
Even though this was one of Kinzo's envelopes, the letter Maria read out loud the previous night hadn't come from Kinzo. Genji continued knocking a little harder and called out in a loud voice.
Ava! Ava! It is Genji. Are you there? Please answer, Ava!
Before, there was no response from the inside. Sometimes when the servants went to call for guests for a meal, the guests would be sleeping so deeply they wouldn't wake up. In times like that, the servant would stick a letter under the door to show it was time to come out and leave the guests be. But despite that, Genji beat even harder on the door and called out Ava's name. However, there was no answer. Kanon stuck his ear up to the door, held his breath, and listened for any sounds coming from inside. I hear something that sounds like the television, but I don't sense anyone. The room might be empty. Genji took out a handkerchief, and careful not to touch it with his bare hands, gently pulled out the envelope that was stuck under the door. It was sealed with a deep red sealing wax. Without a doubt, the mark on the sealing wax had come from the Ushiromiya family's head ring.
Ava! Ava! Please answer! Are you still in your room?
But still, there was no answer. There was a chance those two were aimlessly walking around the mansion. This is the home Ava had grown up in. There was plenty of reason to think that she had gone out in a casual stroll. Genji groped around his pocket and pulled out a bundle of keys which contained the key that would open the guest room.
Genji!
Kanon also understood what this meant. They would sometimes unlock the door so they could go in and do things like make the beds, but only after they made sure the guests were out. To unlock the door for any other reason, especially to do so when there was a chance the guests haven't even given permission might still be in there, was an action unbecoming of a servant. But Genji had decided. If the only problem had been that his knock hadn't received a reply, he wouldn't have gone this far. But the envelope under the door was doubtlessly one of Kinzo's. Or rather, one of the Western envelopes of the Ushiromiya family head. After last night, the sender of the envelope could be someone other than Kinzo. If this letter had been sent by someone else...
Ava! My apologies. Allow me to enter your room.
After giving that final notice, Genji stuck one of the keys from the bundle into the keyhole. There was a sound of the door unlocking, and after slowly turning the knob, he slowly started opening the door. Light seeped out through the crack of the door. Were they in the room? Or had they forgotten to turn off the lights? It was the sound of the door chain being pulled tight. The chain had been secured. The chain couldn't be secured from the outside, so it was proved that they were in the room. The sound of voices of the TV seeped out of the room. The lights, the chain, the TV. All these things made it clear they were in the room. But there was no sign of them. Genji called out to Ava once again through the crack of the door, but there was no answer.
Genji, what should we do?
As part of their job, the servants were able to unlock almost any lock in the mansion, but they had no way to open a door with a chain. The only way to get the chain was to cut it. That was certainly not permitted as part of a servant's usual work. A creepy chill had already rushed up to their backs. Kanon held his breath again and tried to sense someone through the door, but even so, he wasn't able to sense anyone.
I will call Madame and return. Kanon, cut the chain.
Yes! As Kanon hurried to get a cutting tool, Genji called him to a stop.
Wait, Kanon, return to the kitchen and take Kumasawa with you. You must not act alone.
Yes, certainly. It looked like Kanon was wondering why he had to do something so troublesome in the middle of this urgent situation, but Genji had said it out of wariness. He didn't care what happened to himself, but in the worst case scenario, he didn't want anything to happen to Kanon. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was piling food on the serving cart, and Nanjo was waiting for Genji, apparently wanting to show him a move he finally thought up that might turn the tables on him, but Genji's appearance immediately told him that something was wrong.
Oh, what has happened, Genji? Dr. Nanjo, my apologies, but please allow this match to be suspended for the time being. Kanon, take care of the chain. Kumasawa, stop setting up dinner for now and accompany Kanon. I will go over to Madame. If you'd like to come with me, Dr. Nanjo.
Has something happened? Genji took Nanjo, who still didn't know what was going on, and quickly left the kitchen.
Kumasawa, my apologies, but please come with me.
What has happened, Kanon? Kumasawa had almost said the exact same thing as Nanjo, unable to take in the situation and chase after Kanon, who had flown out into the hallway. Taking Kumasawa with him, Kanon went out to the storage room and looked through the tools packed in toolboxes hanging all over the walls, trying to find something that could be used to cut the chain. What are you looking for? Let me help too. We're cutting a door chain. Where was that large wire cutter? A door chain? Why would you need to do something like that? The chain to Ava and Hideyoshi's room. Even though they should be inside, they didn't answer when we called them. It took Kumasawa some time to figure out how cutting the chain and Ava and Hideyoshi not answering were connected, but she did realize that this was an urgent situation. That one would probably do the trick. Kanon took a very large wire cutter that had been hanging on the wall. It was called a cutter. Maybe it'd be easy to understand if we say it was shaped like a pair of pliers. Kanon remembered once being warned that this is a dangerous tool that could easily cut through one of your fingers. Kanon took that and rushed up the stairs. He already knew instinctively he should fight for every minute and every second to open it quickly, or perhaps it was already.
Please wait, Kanon. Hurry.
Kumasawa eventually caught up with him, gasping for breath with both hands on her knees. When Kanon changed his grip on the wire cutters and looked up at the door, he let on, struck speechless.
What is this?
Kumasawa screamed weakly, her face pallid. That was no surprise, because right there on the door, just like the magic circle that had been drawn in the shadow of this Rose Garden storehouse, there was another eerie drawn shape like blood-like paint. However, it would be odd to call this one a magic circle, because unlike what most people would expect, it wasn't a circle with shapes drawn inside of it. It was a slightly more complicated geometrical shape. However, those strange characters filling in the gaps, which weren't from the alphabet, were the same kinds as the one in the magic circle on the shutter. But the thing that Kanon struck speechless about wasn't how eerie the magic circle was. It was that something like this hadn't been here a short while ago. First, he had taken a trip back to the kitchen. After that, he'd gone to the storage room to grab a tool and headed right back. Put those together, and it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. How could someone add something this creepy during this period of time? And as though it had just been drawn, almost like the door itself was bleeding. Several unsettling vertical red lines slowly dripped down, getting longer and longer. Kumasawa's knees gave way and she sank down on the spot. If Kumasawa hadn't done this first, Kanon surely would have wanted to. Beatrice. It's the work of Beatrice! How horrid! How horrid! Kanon gulped and readied the wire cutter and approached the door. He didn't want to get close to this disturbing magic circle, and he really didn't want to touch the steadily dripping substance that looked like blood. But if he didn't get close, he wouldn't be able to cut the chain. Finding this cold feeling, he gulped again, and after gathering his courage, he went even closer, putting the wire cutter up against the chain. He pressed the wall. He pressed with all of his strength, managed to cut through the chains far more easily than he anticipated. The cut chain fell into two separate parts, which continued to clang as they swayed back and forth. Kanon, there's an envelope by your feet. Isn't that the master's? It looked like Kumasawa had also noticed the western envelope at the bottom of the door, and that the sealing wax had been sealed with the head's ring. Kanon hesitated for just a second over whether he should open the letter first or check inside the room, but he eventually decided on fulfilling his original purpose. Kanon pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket. This was so he wouldn't leave fingerprints on the door. If his worst fears were realized, the police would want to investigate this room too. He slowly pushed the door open. He was able to more clearly hear the sound of the television, which had been sleeping out faintly this whole time. Ava was lying face up on the bed. On the bed were her shoes still on? Kumasawa, who had fearfully entered after Kanon, who was hiding behind his back, screamed a short "Ee!" once again when she saw Ava like that. Ava's shoes had been on the first part of her that Kanon had seen, so the oddness of wearing shoes in the bed was the first thing to strike him. But when Ava's head shifted into his line of sight, Kanon couldn't help but let out a short scream like Kumasawa. Right in the middle of Ava's forehead, something had been placed? Something was growing there? No. Right in the center of her forehead was an old-fashioned knife? That or some weapon like it was sticking out. At the base of where it was struck, blood dripped down, staining the sheets on the other side bright red. Kumasawa's knees gave way once more as she sank down on the floor. Her mouth kept flapping open and closed, but she couldn't even scream. Ava was dead with some kind of weapon sticking out of her forehead. Both eyes were wide open. The image of the person who killed her must have been burned into them. But only the mouth capable of naming that person had been shut for all eternity. Even though her forehead was the last place they wanted to look, they couldn't tear their eyes from it. Right there, the weapon was stuck in Ava's forehead, standing almost perfectly upright, and on the handle was a complicated design that you wouldn't expect to see on an ordinary weapon. That thing could be summed up with the word occult. It was a vulgar object with a design that might have been some demon. What about Hideyoshi? Hideyoshi! It was on top of her bed, but the other bed was empty. Where's was Hideyoshi? Taking a backwards glance at Kumasawa, still on her knees and stupefied, he checked the bathroom just in case. The moment he opened the door, he was greeted by steam and sat in the shower. The bathroom was the same similar style as most hotel bathrooms. In the shower, a waterproof curtain was used to keep water from flying out. That waterproof curtain was half open. Lying tumbled down the bathroom was Hideyoshi, completely naked with both eyes open, and a point right at Kanon. Just like Ava, a weapon with a demon-like design was stuck into his forehead. Since his head had been under the shower's hot water the whole time, his face wasn't half covered and filthy with blood like Ava's had been. But the sight of him dead while taking a shower was tragic enough. Just then, they heard Natsuki's voice coming from the hall. She was probably coming with Genji. Again with this graffiti. What about this letter? What does it say inside? I don't know. I haven't read it yet. We shouldn't touch it carelessly. The culprit's fingerprints might be left on it. We should hand it over to the police. They went out of their way to leave it here. I'm sure they wouldn't have left fingerprints. As Natsuki said that, she picked up the envelope. And before checking its contents, she She entered the room herself where she found Ava dead. Ava! Madame, Hideyoshi is here too. This is truly atrocious. Canon, turn off the shower. Don't let this be any more pitiful than it needs to be. Yes, ma'am. Canon gripped his handkerchief and twisted the valve, turning off the shower. In the bathtub, a small jar of body soap had fallen with its cap off. It really looked like he had been attacked while taking a shower. There was still a small splash of blood clinging to the white bathtub. A combination of red and white made a horrible contrast. Dr. Nanja. I understand. No signs of post-mortem lividity. Rigor mortis hasn't begun either. It seemed that an hour or so has passed since they were killed. Even so, how a weapon with such a short handle could do that to the skull, I cannot imagine. Nanja checked their pulse and pupils, making certain of their deaths once more. As Canon watched his business-like treatment, he thought, couldn't you tell at a glance they were dead without doing all of that? Nanjo thought about removing the weapon, then decided it would be better to preserve the scene and hand it over to the police, and he left it alone. A close inspection of the base showed that it didn't have a blade. In fact, it was more conical than blade shape. He noticed that rather than a knife, it was more than a short-handled spear, something with a shape better suited for thrusting and slicing. Rather than a short spear, you might call it a big ice pick. At any rate, after looking at the scene, no further words were needed to describe what sort of terrible purpose such eerily designed weapons were originally made for, nor was it necessary to explain how they carried out their function. Natsu, hoping to escape the repulsive steam filling the bathroom as soon as she could, covered her mouth with a handkerchief and dashed out from the room. Just viewing their gruesome bodies for an instant had been enough to burn the image into her eyes. If she looked any longer, that image would surely remain her vision for all eternity. The rising urge to vomit was exactly the same feeling she had that morning at the garden storehouse. It was wild. Natsu couldn't help but stand with her back facing the guest room, fighting that sickness in her stomach. At any rate, we can't let the children. We can't let George see this room. Seal this room with all haste. Yes, we mustn't let them see. If George saw his parents in this brutal state, they could tell those fiercely racing footsteps in the hallway belonged to George, even before he came dashing into the room. George and the other children had been waiting in the parlor. However, when they saw Genji speak to Natsu, when they saw her pale and fly out of the parlor, they sensed foreboding. And they saw a large group of people gathered around the guest room. They were sure of it. Father! Mother! What is this? Another magic circle? Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi are safe, right? Hey, Canon! What's all this about? Battler. Canon didn't have to say anything. George's scream after he ran into the room told them everything they needed to know. Who did this? I'll kill you! I'll kill you! George, hang in there. Natsui touched George's shoulder with her hand, but he violently shook her off. George fell over beside Ava and buried his face in the bed in front of his mother's face, wailing. He pounded on the bed with his fist over and over again. George! Hang in there. Battler? Battler had his back against the wall of the hallway. He was covering his eyes with his right hand, weeping without restraint. Horrible. That's horrible. The post of the girl he loved, he lost her the next day, and on the same day, even his mom and dad were killed. Isn't that too harsh? Of course, it's sad whenever anyone dies, no matter who it is, but to Battler, those left alone by the deaths of others were far worthy of pity. Everyone here had now lost someone close to them. George wasn't the only one to be pitied. However, George's pain was far greater than anyone else's. Battler. I know everyone dies sooner or later. If you're human, you'll eventually reach a time when you've got to fight the sorrow of losing someone close to you, but still, shouldn't that day be far in the future for Aniki, and shouldn't those deaths visit him one at a time? Horrible! It's too horrible! bastard! That bastard! Doesn't even have a speck of human sympathy in him? Ah!
Battler, don't cry. Don't cry.
Maria tried to comfort Battler in a mechanical-sounding voice. Battler violently wiped his tears. Yeah! Damn it, I won't cry anymore! Tears of regret, tears of sadness, I won't shed them again! It's all useless. Which got me backed into a corner. I'm always on the defensive. That's useless, it's all useless! I'll spin the chessboard around. That bastard probably thinks we'll be running scared like sheep until tomorrow before we try anything. Guess what? I'll spin it around. That bastard can't escape this island with tomorrow either. We won't be hiding away, pissing ourselves. That bastard will. I'll expose you, you'll see. By tomorrow. No, screw tomorrow. Tonight. Before tonight's over, I'll be gripping you by the collar. Oh, man. That's true. Some dark humor. Let's see. Oh, yeah, so... I don't really know what Bile Lizard in. But yes, we gotta give Hideyoshi some pants! At any rate, we'll lock this room and leave everything as is until the police come. No objections, I take it? Natsuki announced it as though she didn't care whether they agreed or not. If anyone had a right to object, it would have been George, but he looked as though he had shed enough tears. Also, I don't know how to cry for real unless I'm actually sad. So if George and Battler sound like they're not actually crying, that's why I suck at fake crying. I can only cry for real. George nodded slightly, still facing away from the others. And when he stood up, everyone else agreed too. Natsuki still hadn't opened the western envelope of the family hut that she picked up, but now they decided to leave this room. She decided to install in the parlor where everyone could watch. As soon as they walked down the hallway, to head back into the parlor. Stuffs. Or maybe sense something kind of strange.
Stinks?
Did you notice it too, Maria? Seriously, what is that smell? It's awful. When everyone sniffed the air, they did notice a horrible burnt smell drifting through the hallway, one that none of them had smelled until then. I will go to quickly check the kitchen. I'm sure I turned the flame off. After noticing a burnt smell, it was natural Kumasawa, who had just been using the burner in the kitchen, suspected her own slip-up had caused it. Kumasawa hastily dashed away. Canon, go with Kumasawa. Do not let her be alone. Yes! After nodding at Genji's order, Canon followed after her. He wasn't running, but as he followed her, he tried to search for the cause of the smell in other directions as well.
Stinks!
It truly is a stench that makes the nose wrinkle. However, that doesn't mean we can just open a window for ventilation. Natsuki was reluctant to open the windows in this situation where self-defense was so important. Let us run the fan. I do not believe there will be any need to open the windows. George, is it okay if I talk to you? If it's about finding the culprit, then I have no problems. It seemed that George had managed to climb out of the abyss of sorrow. All that filled his chest now was the quiet flame of hatred toward the culprit who had stolen the lives of the one he loved and his beloved parents. The chain for the room was set. From what I could tell by looking at it, I'm positive it couldn't be opened from the outside. In other words, this was a perfect closed room. That does seem to be the case. In the case of the Rose Garden storehouse, they might have snuck the shutter key out of the servant room, or maybe they had a duplicate key. I can't imagine the many ways they could have done it. But this chain is different. Among generally used locking techniques, a chain is the simplest one to create a closed room with. Only a chain will block everyone from the outside as long as it isn't physically broken. So does this mean the culprit couldn't have gone in or out through the door? That's interesting. Just a few hours ago, I seem to remember everyone making a fuss how to enter a room without using the door. Back then, we were all losing our cool, wondering how grandfather had disappeared from his room. The receipt Aunt Ava stuck in the door on a whim proved that the door had remained sealed. Yes, I've seen the OG, yes. And since Aunt Natsu was the only person to enter or exit during that time, she was under suspicion. Aunt Ava proposed a theory about how Aunt Natsu might have thrown grandfather out the window and left the door by herself. But this door was much simpler. It was sealed from the inside by the door chain. The window had been locked from the inside, and the bodies had been inside the room. This time had really been, without exaggeration, a true closed room. That's right. If you include grandfather's disappearance, 3 cases have occurred, and all 3 times the door had been the point of interest. The first was the shutter. There was a key in the servant room, and if we assume someone knew about that, this really can't be called a closed room. The next was the door sealed by the receipt. However, Aunt Natsuhi entered the room, so if Grandpa had left through the window or had been thrown out, she would have been able to lock the window before escaping. Or, like my theory, Grandfather could have hidden until the receipt was gone and left the room later. Basically, this door can be defeated with a handful of desperate tricks. In that sense, you can't really call this one a closed room either. And now we have the door sealed with the door chain. Finally, we have to give up. The window, the door, everything had been locked. It was a perfect closed room. The first hadn't been a closed room because everyone could be suspected. The second hadn't been a closed room because Aunt Natsuhi could be suspected. But this time, no one can be suspected. This is a perfect closed room because the door chain formed a seal that blocked everyone equally. In that case, did the culprit carry out the crime without entering the room? With some method from outside the room? Good point. Even though the chain makes it impossible to open it wide enough for a person to fit through, you can actually open a small crack. Did the culprit knock on the door to make them peer out before attacking them? Wait, am I missing something? Yeah. Why do they always do that? Yeah, you are. If Aunt Ava's body had been lying right next to the door, then it might have been possible. But she was on the bed at the back of the room, and Uncle Hideyoshi was even in the bathroom. Looking for the crack in the door, you couldn't even see them. You couldn't reach them with your hands either. Damn it, it's useless. It's all useless. I don't have a clue. Someone was tugging softly at my sleeve. It was Maria.
Satisfied?
What do you mean, satisfied?
Battler, since you didn't want to suspect any of your relatives, you made a wish saying you wanted the culprit to be Beatrice, right? Well, Beatrice granted that wish. Just as you asked, she did something that was completely impossible for a human to make you believe in the witch. And now you're complaining? How selfish. Ow!
I tapped Maria, who was laughing unpleasantly, on the head with my fist. Sure, thanks for granting that wish. That just now was a thank you and also cheats you to stop laughing when it's inappropriate. More importantly, tell me. There was another mysterious scribble on the door to Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi's room. Was that another magic circle? I don't know, which is why I'm letting you take the credit. Quit whining and explain.
You sure are violent, Battler. I won't tell you you're too mean, get it? Ow! Ugh! I'll say it! Stop hitting me! That's the first magic circle of the moon.
What does it mean? What is this magic circle's effect? What does the Hebrew writing mean? Oh yeah!
The words are from the Old Testament Psalms 1...
Wait, yeah. Let me try it again.
The words are from the Old Testament Psalms 107 verse 16. For he has broken gates of brass and cut through bars of iron. This magic circle has 2 effects. First, it can open a door regardless of which method has been used to lock it.
That sure is convenient. So you're saying they're trying to make it look like they're a witch because this closed room has a door that can't be opened without relying on magic? And the other effect?
When you're blocked by unopened doors in all directions, it opens a door. By using it in a difficult situation, it gives you a solution you hadn't even thought of until then. Generally speaking, you receive the powers of observation and discernment, inspiration, and intuition. Beatrice is trying to provoke you, since there's no way lowly humans like Balor can figure out how this door was open. Ow!
Okay, good work, so shut up. Sounds great. I'll accept this challenge from the witch. Maria, things like witches and demons don't exist in this world. Someone killed father and mother. I don't know whether that was someone I know or not, but either way, it was definitely a human. Yeah, but how? How did we reach those two through the crack in the door? It couldn't have been more than 10 centimeters wide. At any rate, I can hardly stand this stench. What in the world could it be? Kanon and Kumasa, who had gone ahead, realized the smell wasn't coming from the kitchen even before they arrived there. That was because they noticed an even thicker wave of stench rising up from the stairs leading to the basement, which they passed on their way to the kitchen. The boiler room. I wonder if there's something wrong with the boiler again. Those stairs led to the underground boiler room. The mansion's boiler was old and in poor condition. Both of them had witnessed problems with the boiler on several occasions, but they had never smelled the boiler belching out a stench like this before. What was that sound? The thing they heard from the basement was definitely the sound of the door closing. Kumasawa would phrase it as a question, but she already knew it couldn't be anything else. Kumasawa was so surprised at the sound, her knees gave way yet again and she cowered. After all, at that very moment, no one could have been the boiler room. Just a few seconds ago, everyone had been crowded together around Ava and Hideyoshi's room. So who caused the sound of the door closing just now? Kanon! After taking a second to sort out the situation, Kanon ran down toward this basement. Since they heard the sound of the door closing just now, there was no sign of anyone coming up the stairs. The person who closed the door had to be inside the boiler room right now. If the boiler room had been a dead end, Kanon wouldn't have rushed in so hastily. But Kanon was a servant, so he knew. There were two entrances to the boiler room, one that opened to the mansion, and one that opened up to the courtyard. If he didn't chase them now, they might slip away. Kumasawa reached the same conclusion long after Kanon did, that she couldn't let him go alone. The thing in the boiler room was the culprit, an opponent who had easily killed 6 adults in the first murder, that no matter how Kanon confronted them, he wouldn't be a match. Of course, with this argument, even if Kumasawa joined him, it wouldn't change anything. At any rate, after a delay, Kumasawa decided that she mustn't let Kanon go alone, and she rushed down the stairs. At the time, Kanon was already in the boiler room. The boiler room's characteristic damp heat tormented him. It had always been an unpleasantly smelly and hot place. On top of that, the room was full of a horrible stench which made Kanon feel like he was going to be sick. There was no doubt this room was the source. In that case, Kanon should have been searching for the smell where it was coming from. However, Kanon kept gazing straight forward as he grabbed a hatchet from the tool shelf just from the side of the door. He hadn't stretched out his hand because he wanted a hatchet. He had wanted to grab a weapon, any weapon. Why? Kanon gazed into the darkness where the naked light bulb couldn't pierce. Then he answered. In roulette, you bet on a number where the colors red or black vying for a payoff. However, low-risk bets like black and red only offer a similarly low payoff. The words coming from Kanon's mouth were swallowed up by the darkness. That darkness suddenly started swirling, glittering. It was such a fantastical scene. Golden sparkling butterflies that hid in the shadows all over the boiler room flapped their wings, twinkling beautifully, and gathered in the darkness, disappearing. Kanon continued speaking, directing his words at the darkness as it swallowed the butterflies up. As the butterflies gathered in the darkness, they, they would certainly laugh. But Kanon continued to speak without faltering the slightest. However, if you bet on something with a lower probability, your payoff increases in proportional to the risk. The master called succeeding despite an astronomical risk a miracle, and called the astronomical payoff gained as a result of magic. I have no interest in what kind of magic you and the master were seeking when you spun the roulette, but you forgot something. You forgot in the roulette there's a pocket that's neither red nor black. Roulette has a special pocket called 0, which means the house takes everything in certain variants of the game. This means that all the coins bet on the table will be swept up, just as though everyone has forfeit. I set my heart on just one thing. I decided that if Shannon were to be killed and I was left alive, I'd sacrifice this life of mine and bring this roulette of yours to ruin. This isn't one of the master's rules, and it certainly isn't one of yours. I made this rule myself. I'm not furniture anymore. I'm the 0 on your roulette! Kanon's face twisted with humiliation. It was clear his defiance against his own weakness was being ridiculed somehow. Kanon's brow creased even further. A fierce expression that he never shown to anyone appeared on his face. The hand grasping the hatchet was shaking. His sweat became drops which slid downward. It was clear this emotion causing Kanon's hand to shake wasn't just anger. However, Kanon suppressed that emotion. I won't let your words lead me astray again. This is where the demon's roulette ends. Wait another 1,000 years in hell for your next summoner! Beatrice! When Kanon raised the hatchet and dived straight into the darkness definitely sneered. It sneered that courage as if it were lazy, vulgar, futile, and meaningless. Kanon, his hatchet still held aloft, couldn't take another step after that. With a clang, the hatchet he'd been grasping fell and rolled on the floor. And following that with a pair of thuds, Kanon's knees hit left, then right. That hand which looked like it was trying to catch the sky now, the hatchet that had been dropped gradually lowered, landing on his chest. Then on the other hand did the same. Right there, a handle with a demon-shaped design was buried into his chest. The same type of weapon that had been stabbed into Eva and Hideyoshi's foreheads was in Kanon's chest. Kanon was curled up in anguish, fresh blood dribbling from the corner of his mouth. It was makeup too extreme for Kanon's white skin. And around the scene, the glittering gold butterflies danced through the darkness, mesmerizing. It was a beautiful, beautiful dance, a funeral march of tribute, ridicule, and contempt for the single boy's self-sacrifice. Kanon had already been prepared for his own death, but although he could do nothing but accept the death he had received, he attempted one last measure of resistance. He grasped the handle of the weapon sticking into his chest with both hands, gritted his teeth with an acute, unearthly pain. He pulled it out. For only a moment, a bright red spray gushed out. It made an unpleasant bloop sound. It probably resembled the sound of Kanon's soul as it was swept into the swamp of the dead. Kanon! Someone! Kumasawa screamed at the incomprehensible sight in front of her. Kanon was lying in a pool of blood. Kumasawa's heart was a complete mess. What a horrible fate! He wouldn't have been killed if I had been with him! What incredible luck! If I had been with him, I might have been killed too! As she screamed, her expression was filled with a complete confusion. All the muscles in her face were pulled up, almost as though she was smiling while crying. But no one could have made a fun expression like this. What is it, Kumasawa? Answer me, Kumasawa! The first one to dash in was Natsuki holding the rifle. Balor and Genji dashed in after her. Normally, they probably would have started discussing the origin of that violent stench filling the boiler room. But after they saw Kanon, who was lying on the ground as if he were drowning in an ocean of his own blood, the stench wasn't important anymore. Kanon, answer me! Genji, bring Dr. Nanjo here! Natsu realized that even though Kana was on the verge of death, he was still conscious, so he sent Genji to get the doctor. Natsu, holding the rifle aloft, faced the darkness in the center of the boiler room and shouted, "Who is hiding over there? Come out quickly! If you don't come out here, I'll shoot without mercy!" "We need light! On Natsu, let's light him up!" Valor, thinking quickly, took a large flashlight from the tool shelf along the door and used the light to cut through the darkness Natsu was glaring into. Yep, this scene is a pretty good scene. Episode 3 where Keiichi's like, oh my god, that scene made me crack up, even though like it's so weird. It's like, imagine being a little too enthusiastic about dessert. Like, what the hell? You can bear take that shit seriously. But the light only shone with a mechanical-looking piping door. The door had been left open a small crack. It was obvious that someone had left through there in a hurry. Natsu, where does that door go? Genji, where does that door lead to? The courtyard. Like how I'd like to get away, you damn bastard! Valor let out a war cry as he slammed into the door. Cool air from outside suddenly rushed in. There were some thin, rough stairs leading up. Valor ran up, shouting, "Wait, Battler! It's dangerous to be on your own right now!" Natsu was also rushing up the stairs, chasing after Valor. They were in the courtyard. The courtyard of the mansion had been built strictly for lighting purposes, so it wasn't a very elegant place. Because it was surrounded on all sides, the air was calm and completely undisturbed, even though they could hear the sound of strong wind. There was only the gentle, sorrowful rain. As he ran through the cold and scattered raindrops, dashing up the stairs into the courtyard, Valor looked in every direction. Of course, the odds of him finding a suspicious silhouette just like standing around nonchalantly were pretty much zero. Valor spun around, looking. He turned again and again. He kept spinning until he almost lost his sense of direction. He prayed that he could see the culprit somewhere in this scenery, but there was no chance. All he saw as he spun more and more of the mansion's heartless walls and windows. Furthermore, there were 2 entrances to the mansion from the courtyard. Neither of them were locked. This courtyard couldn't be entered from the outside of the mansion. The doors had been built with locks. He didn't know which one they had left through. He had to give up. Valor pounded the wall with his fist, swearing, "Battler! You mustn't run ahead by yourself!" Battler! Valor pressed his forehead against the wall, which he scratched out with his fingernails as he cried. "Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi! And now Cannon! You killed a full 6 people! And that wasn't enough, so you had to kill 3 more? Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi were always kind and fun! I just met Cannon yesterday, but I'm sure I would have gotten along fine with him! Why did you kill them? Why? Why? You know, when people die, they don't come back to life again, right? They aren't just gonna quickly sprout up again like bamboo shoots! Why did you kill them? Why? Why? Ah! Valor was a boy who could understand the feelings of pain and regret in a person's heart. So he cried with all his strength. Natsu, he had always thought Valor as a frank person, was a little surprised to find he had this delicate side. At the same time, she understood how easily hurt the heart of a young person could be, so she held him. "It's all right. I will definitely protect you, George, Maria, and Jessica. As a mother, and as the representative of the Ushiromiya family." Valor, after sobbing into Natsu's chest for a while, wiped his tears with a bitter smile, as though he had been like that the whole time, and tried to reappear as though he cried more than enough already. "Anyway, let's go back down for now. Protecting ourselves is a higher priority than finding the culprit. Tomorrow the boat will arrive. After that happens, the police will come and everything should be brought to light. There's no way the culprit can escape this island no matter how much they struggle." That's right, when the police come, the seagulls cried, the crime will be solved. But for some reason, Valor felt a slight sense of uneasiness, as if the seagulls would never cry again. That couldn't be true. When the typhoon passes, Surely the lively seagulls would return to the harbor again. I returned to the boiler room along with Aunt Natsuhi and told everyone weekly that we hadn't found anything. We heard Dr. Nanjo and George and carried Cannon into the servant room. The servant room had a first aid kit and a sink and could apparently function as a nurse's office. Kumasawa and Jessica had accompanied them. Stains from Cannon's blood remained on the floor. Judging by the large amount of blood lost and the ruthless shape of the weapon, had fallen carelessly to the ground. I figured that Dr. Nanjo's treatment would probably... That weapon was doubtlessly the same type that had stuck in Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi's foreheads. Sorry, yeah. I have a very loud voice. Sorry if it hurt your ears or anything. My apologies, I should have put a warning or something. But wait, isn't the demonic design of the handle a little different? There seemed to be a small difference in that part. Still, as far as the overall shape was concerned, the weapons were all the same type. Though it seemed brutal, we left the weapons stuck into Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi to preserve the crime scene. So it was the first time we were able to have a perfect view of the entire weapon. As we had expected, the weapon was not bladed like a knife, but shaped like an ice pick, or rather a thin stake. And it had a spiral-shaped pattern, sort of like a drill. It looked like something that might have been driven into the hearts of human sacrifice in some demonic ritual. Including the handle, it was 25 centimeters long. Half of that was the stake-shaped part, which was stained with a deep red blood. The length of the blood-stained part made it clear just how deeply it must have penetrated into Cannon's chest. But Aunt Natsuhi and the rest didn't even look at the weapon and instead stood in front of the incinerator where the horrible stench was emanating from. They must have dragged out that thing which had been burning in the furnace. It was still smoldering and kept sending out dense waves of that awfully unpleasant smell. Genji and Maria stared down at it. Aunt Natsuhi probably couldn't have stand to look directly at it. She kept shaking her head, her back to it.
Ah!
I thought nothing could surprise me after everything that happened. But this is... I stood there for a while moaning with the rising urge to vomit. The true source of that unearthly stench was a scorched corpse that had been cooking inside the incinerator. The clothes, the surface of the body, and the hair were all hideously burned. That grotesque corpse was in a state where not the face nor the age nor even the gender could be guessed at. When I thought about it calmly, I realized that the corpse appearing at this time could only be one person. It was Grandfather who had disappeared that morning and whose whereabouts had been unknown. I believe it is most likely the Master. I agree that he would pass away in such a state. It's heartrending. But is there any proof this corpse really is Grandfather? It's burnt so black you can't even tell what sex it is. Battler, look at the feet. Aunt Natsuhi, with her handkerchief over her mouth and her eyes averted, pointed and told me to look at the burnt corpse's feet. Notice how there's 6 toes on each foot. Huh? You're right. Just as Genji had said, there were 6 toes on each foot. Each individual toe looked so normal in its line I hadn't even noticed. The Master was born with 6 toes on both his feet. Consequently, the Master was entrusted with the revival of the Ushiramiya family. I have heard that since long ago, cases of polydactyly were common in the Ushiramiya family. It's probably hereditary. Polydactyly means... Wait, am I saying that right? Polydactyl? It literally means many fingers. Because of a little mistake by God when a person is born, one of their toes or fingers split in 2, and the total number increases. But a big deal isn't usually made of polydactyly in the world at large. That's probably because it isn't a disease. It's just something people are born with. So while they're still babies, at about the time they turn 1 year old, they can be taken to the hospital and given surgery to make them normal. I think I've heard it in school before pronounced correctly, but I don't know if my memory is right anymore, since I haven't been in school in a long time. But even a child with polydactyl can be treated before they become aware, so they might not even remember it themselves. By the way, it seems the possibility for this to occur in 1 out of every 2,000 babies, so even though it's not usually seen, it isn't that rare at all. Speaking of which, I think Uncle Hideyoshi mentioned something about it to me long ago. Something about even how even Totoyomi Hideyoshi, the man who unified Japan at the end of the Sengoku period, had 6 fingers on one hand. According to Aunt Natsuhi, among the Ushirian family heads, the one most praised for their wisdom all had polydactyly. Because of that, when grandfather was born, his relatives were all excited at the thought he might become another wise leader. And when the leading relatives all died in the Great Kanto earthquake, it was apparently argued that grandfather should be the one to restore the family because of the auspicious sign of his birth. If grandfather hadn't disliked his position at the head so much, this six-toe probably would have been very lucky for him. Come to think of it, I heard something about a country where it's believed people with polydactyly should be treated as gods and revered. This is beside the point, but it's fairly common in mystery novels for a corpse to be burnt to hide its identity, but I guess that in grandfather's case, just toasting wouldn't be enough. And grandfather's body was not simply burnt. It was just like Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi, and that thing that had been stabbed into Kanon's chest, one of the demon's ice picks that was stuck to his forehead. The head's ring is not his finger. So the letter last night was telling the truth. Father would probably be horribly disappointed. Natsui let her head droop and closed her eyes tightly. This room had also become a vital crime scene for us to hand over to the police. It was decided that we would leave grandfather's corpse here and lock the room, sealing it. It isn't clear when grandfather's corpse started burning in the incinerator, since according to Genji, the strength of the flames hadn't been that strong. The body must have started burning a long time ago, so that stench could slowly creep out of the furnace and fill the room bit by bit, eventually pouring out and climbing up the staircase. Putting aside whether he was rare or well done, grandfather had been brought out, killed, and burned, even though he had started locked away in the closed room created by his auto-lock. There's probably no doubting this. However, according to Genji, the boiler room is usually locked. The possibility that someone outside our group had snuck in and committed the crime was overwhelmingly high. There was also a good chance this person was walking around with something like a master key. After all, the doors and windows throughout the mansion had been checked. But despite that, the culprit had been able to strut around the mansion freely. Does this crime confirm that a 19th person exists? There's still a contradiction, since they're trying to tout their existence without ever showing themselves once. Along with Kiri's chessboard theory, I've been using this contradiction to deny the existence of a 19th person. By spinning the chessboard around once more, the very fact this crime makes it perfectly obvious that a 19th person exists means the existence of a 19th person is even less plausible. As long as that 19th person doesn't show themselves in front of us, the culprit could get grandfather out through the door sealed by the receipt. If they could kill Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi from the other side of the door by a sealed chain, and they could possibly go as far as to create a fictional 19th person through strange tricks and devices? If we still want to believe that the culprit is among the 18, the list of suspects has grown very short. The 4 of us kids, Aunt Natsuhi, Genji, Masawa, and Dr. Nanjo. One of these people has to be the culprit. Wait, you can't be sure of that. Just a second ago we started doubting whether the corpse here was actually grandfather's, right? Maybe we can think of the other bodies in the same way. For example, the first 6 all had their faces horribly smashed. Some of the bodies had kept enough of their faces for us to confirm who they were. But that old bastard, for example, had lost his entire face as though the whole thing had been neatly peeled off. We only needed to figure out which body was which by their clothes and surroundings. Did the culprit prepare a fake body beforehand and alter it to make it look like they died, even though they were actually hiding somewhere after committing the crime? It may sound ridiculous, but it wouldn't be an impossible trick to pull off. It's too early to give in to this 19th person. No, this witch! Maria, you mustn't stare so fixedly anymore. Come on, Battler 2. I'm worried about Kanon's condition. We mustn't remain in a place like this any longer than necessary. Let us return. Maria didn't go out with everyone else, but remained in the boiler room. The thing she was staring so fixedly at probably wasn't grandfather's body, but the demon's ice pick sticking out of his forehead. It was probably the sort of item that an enthusiast couldn't bear to ignore. I tapped her on the head. Hey, Maria! What's Beatrice after? Is it all of our lives?
Beatrice will revive very soon. At that time, none shall be left alive.
How can you laugh at something like that? You think you're the only one who's safe? Why don't you feel like you're in danger? Why aren't you scared?
Beatrice made a promise. She said she's gonna take me to the Golden Land. It's a wonderful place where you have no obligations. Everyone's always together, and everyone's always nice to everyone else. I'm looking forward to it. That time will come very soon now.
When you think about it in hindsight, that's actually really sad. Just what kind of person is Maria? I only know what Maria was like 6 years ago when she was 3. She was once pure and obedient. A good kid. This new Maria 6 years later, and the Maria I knew didn't seem to fit together. Just who is she? This witch who calls herself Maria. To Maria, who obstinately believes in the witch. This series of unsolved crimes is proof that the witch actually exists. Every time something occurs that would be difficult for a human, it becomes a little hard for the rest of us not to believe in the witch, Beatrice. It must be an intense pleasure for Maria to see her relatives, who once firmly denied the witch's existence, started acknowledging the witch's existence one by one. Is that why she's in high spirits? When you know the real answer, it's so freaking depressing in that sense. I mean, yep. Maria, let me ask this one more time. You'll probably answer the same anyway, but I'll ask just once more.
Huh?
Yesterday, you were given a letter in the Rose Garden. Who gave it to you?
Like I said, Beatrice, Ballard still doesn't believe.
Maria only repeated what she had already said. Maria met with the 19th person, the witch. Is that person a 19th person? Or did one of the 18 just get her to say that? All that's certain is that Maria has been with the rest of us constantly, has always had an alibi, and hasn't done anything suspicious. She's simply overjoyed at being made Beatrice's messenger, and it certainly isn't the 19th person. Supposedly. Oh yeah, and also like the manga too. I think the manga is more of like the answer book, because Umineko in general, the visual novel itself can be pretty confusing. I don't know. I think for me, I just accept things as they are. That's right. I wonder what's written in the letter we picked up in Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi's room. Aunt Natsu should still have it with her. Okay, and we're gonna read those, but just in a bit. Yeah, it's in the manga. Like, Personally, I like to read Confession of the Golden Witch in the manga, because if you want to cry, there you go. More crying. But I don't really think how any of the murders happen really matter for me, because I think the motive was more important in that sense, and such. Like, I liked how for episode 8 it's more for one of the characters to move on. Not gonna say who, but yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like Ryukishi originally wrote that to not just give answers or whatever. And I probably would have just accepted it for what it was, cuz I'm not the type of person who's like, I want this, cuz for me I'm just like, I can't solve mysteries. For me, I would just be like, the people who have the master keys, it's the servants, right? And then I wouldn't bother to solve the mystery and just go, it was magic. Yep. Okay. Ushiramiya Kinzo burned in the incinerator with a weapon resembling an ice pick sticking out of his forehead. The old sorcerer's wish vanished right before it could be granted. He always knew that this was one possible result of his risky gamble. was Shiramiya Eva, found in the bed of the guest room inside the mansion with a weapon resembling an ice pick sticking out of her forehead. Was Shiramiya Hideyoshi, found in the bathroom in the same guest room that Eva was found in. Like Eva, there was a weapon resembling an ice pick sticking out of his forehead. You can't see either of them by looking through the gap of the door while the chain is set. You can't see them, so you can't reach them. Hey, how could a human possibly kill them? Okay, so canon's still okay. Oh, yep. That's true. Exactly. Alright. Let's see. Any other tips? Alright. I think we are done today. I will read another day. I will read tomorrow at the same time, as usual. I'll try to get the backgrounds to change so it's not just like the, what is it called? The PS3 backgrounds. I'll try to get that fixed and stuff. Alright. I'm gonna go now. Good night. And I'll just wait for a bit and then I don't know. Sorry sometimes like if I hesitate in certain ways, I'm just awkward because I don't know how to talk to people. Yep. See you tomorrow. Oh yes, Super Mario Sunshine. Oh man. Also, whenever that scene pops up, I have to think about like the scene in the anime where like Ava and George is like stuffing his head in her boobs when she's dead. It's just like the Umineko anime, everyone. Don't watch it unless you want to have a laugh or something or whatever. Oh yeah. The best way to watch the Umineko anime is Umineko parody fandom, or some I don't know, or one of those parody. Yes, don't watch it. Never watch it. The manga is better if you want a quicker way to consume Umineko, but I've heard some of the Higurashi dub through YouTube poops. I like watching those. Other ways, Higurashi parody fandom. I actually based off like some of the voices off of the dub, actually, for like some of the readings. A mix of that with the Japanese for like when I read Higurashi. Oh yes, that's actually I use Keiichi's voice that I use for Battler's voice. I think so. But yeah. I do think that dub Keiichi does fit him. Oh wait, are we talking about the Higurashi Go Sotsu dub? Or are we talking about the OG Higurashi dub where the anime isn't as good? Oh gosh, yes. Like, even half of Higurashi no Naku Koro ni Kai is literally in the original, like, in the first season. It's just like, what? Honestly, like, I almost dropped Higurashi, the original anime, because, like, if they had not condensed it that bad, I almost dropped it at the end of Watanagashi, where, like, Mion, you know, was going, like, it was because of you, Keiichi, because of the doll. And I'm like, oh no, not much of Higurashi spoilers in that sense, but like I almost dropped it. I kept watching and then I finally got hooked in Sumihoro Boshi. But if they had done it correctly, it wouldn't have been whatever. Oh, I mean, I think Higurashi is more for I think it's like more kind of idealistic. It's good in its own way. I think, like for me, for a long time, Higurashi no Naku Kroni Kai was my more favorite parts of Higurashi. I actually did not like the first part of Higurashi at first. I think it's a lot better. Kai's a lot better written than the first 4. I'm not a big fan of the time killing arc. The 4th one where Akasaka is the main character. Because I found that one the most boring. Maybe so. And now that we have the sealed door with the door chain, we finally have to give up. The window, the door, everything had been locked. I mean, I think Akasaka is like, Akasaka only gets his real time to shine in like episode 8. He gets better in episode 8. That is like his best time, I think. But yeah, he only gets one awesome moment or very few awesome moments. Because he's not that good in episode 4, that's for sure. He's like adult Keiichi if he kind of sucked. But like, he gets better in episode 8. Like, okay, so yeah. Oh, wait. Oh yeah, that part, like with Irie, or when like they go a little too far with the punishment games. Yeah. Yeah, for me it's like seeing them spiral, but for me it's seeing how much they care about each other, because I'm a sucker for found family trope so bad, especially in Tatarigoroshi, like when it's actually done well, or like where like they actually do some awesome stuff, like in Sumi Horoboshi, or in episode 7 of Higurashi is one of my favorite arcs, because like that's where things actually start to build up, like for real. For me, that's my actual most favorite one. Like I like it even more than I like the finale. Oh yeah. Ugh. Or Higurashi Kira with like Batsu Koishi. Ugh, I made myself read that when I was reading Higurashi no Naku Kroni Rei. I really like the red truths and stuff. That's actually a pretty cool concept. Imagine if that was in real life. No, like, I hate stupid arguments where people are just like arguing in a circle about stupid stuff. Oof. Not gonna comment about Meikashi, Watanagashi stuffs, but yeah.
That one had a really memorable and characteristic design, so I hope you at least know what it was. Ow!
I think episode 2 was pretty... I mean, there's some things that happen in episode 2 that can only be answered in episode 7. Like, I think episode 7 is basically the answer key for Higurashi. And then episode 8 is a solution for solving all the problems. That's basically what I can say. Like summaries. Like, I think I once made a bunch of summaries in one sentence about how you could describe each episode of Higurashi without making it too spoilery or anything and stuff. But yeah, I would say episode 3 is my favorite because I like Keiichi and Sadako's relationship in the original Higurashi. Like in Higurashi Kai, it's 7 for me. like I would definitely say that Kai is better written than the original Higurashi. Like the first one where it's just the question arcs for me. But I think it was like he's just building up and stuff. Oh yeah. I don't even like what they did with the manga gamer sprite where Sadako still has like the towel thing. I censored it when I uploaded it on YouTube because it's just like the only thing that the PSP sprites or something, the ones where where they don't have the towel fall off and she just keeps the towel, and it doesn't look weird or creepy, or like in the Higurashi anime at least where she wears her regular clothes. It's just like like she should have been wearing her clothes. Yeah, I think like it really depends. Like if you're, I remember when I was watching it when I was 13, I was not privy to any of that, and I was just like, whatever, because I was like 13 and stuff. Yeah, I know in like Kikonia and I think Kikonia so far, from what I've seen, it takes out a lot of the stuff that was originally in Higurashi with those types of things, which is what I really like. I heard it's like kind of like an appeal to a certain demographic, probably. Oh yes, and a mentioning with JoJo Part 2, like what was his name? The guy saying German science is the best science or whatever. That guy, Stroheim. Yep. Oh yeah, Balor. I like it when Balor like matures at the end where he stops making the dumb jokes. Gosh. Yep, basically. In vain. I mean, I don't know how to cry, so I didn't actually cry. I don't know how to cry unless like it actually makes me sad. Like as in like actually crying. So I don't know if that was like actually whatever. But yeah. I know, right? I've pretty much always had strong vocal cords because I was also in choir too. I was one of the loudest singers. And like people complain like, we can hear you over other people. So I could have been an opera singer. Or something, I don't know. But yeah. Yes. God gave me a weak, frail body, but in return, he gave me my parents' vocal cords with no inside voices.